Chapter 5. "No, I'm going to walk home," said George. "I've got a torch. I may find Timmy's badge." "Oh, for pity's sake," groaned Dick. "Don't say we've got to walk back hunting for the badge all the way home. No, George, that's too much." "I can go alone, with Timmy," said George. "I didn't mean you others to come." "Well, we can't let you walk a mile or two home in the dark by yourself," said Julian. "I tell you what, I'll go with you, George, and Dick and Anne can go back by train." "No thanks," said Anne. "I'll come too. I think I know where Tim dropped his badge. In the drive of that big house. Do you remember when the cat sat up in a tree and Timmy leapt up at her? Well, he caught his collar on a bough, and I bet that's when he lost his tail wagger badge." "Yes, I expect you're right," said George. "Timmy's being a bit of a nuisance today, aren't you, Tim? I hope that cat won't be anywhere about in the garden." "Tie a bit of string to Tim's collar," said Dick, producing a piece. "And hang on to him, George. Well, are we ready?" They all set off in the starry night. They hardly needed their torches once they had got used to the dark, because the stars were so very bright. They came at last to Tarley's Mount and stopped at the gates. "Here we are," said Dick, flashing his torch. "We know where Timmy went this morning, and if we hunt about, we're pretty certain to find the badge. Now you keep by me, Tim," said George, holding tightly to the string lead. They all went down the drive, and in the middle of it, they stopped in surprise. "I can hear those voices again. Well, different ones this time, but voices," said Anne, astonished. "Who can be out here, talking and talking in the night?" "Beats me," said Dick. "Come on, let's go to that tree by the front door. I bet the badge will be there." They went to the big door, still hearing the voices somewhere away in the distance. Anne gave a sudden cry and bent down. "Yes, here's the badge, just where I thought it might be. Isn't that lucky?" "Oh, good," said George, and fixed it on Timmy's collar. "There's somebody singing now," said Dick, standing still and listening. "It's really odd." Chapter 6. "Perhaps it's a radio somewhere," said Anne. "It sounds a bit like one." "But there's no other house near here," said Julian. "Not near enough for us to hear the radio, anyway." The singing voice stopped, and band music came on the air. "There," said Anne. "That's the radio, all right. There can't be any band playing in the open air this cold night." "You're right," said Julian, puzzled. "Do you think that the sounds can be coming from this house, Tarley's Mount?" "But we know there's no one there," said Dick. "That woman who fed the cat this morning told us the house was empty." "That's why she had to come and feed the cat. And if someone had left the radio on in the house, she'd have heard it and switched it off." "No, she wouldn't," said George. "Why not?" asked Dick, surprised. "Well, because she was deaf," said George. "She kept putting her hand behind her ear, don't you remember? I think the radio is on in the house." "You don't think somebody's got in and is having a good time in there, eating what's left in the larder, sleeping in the beds and listening to the radio, do you?" said Anne. "It's a bit puzzling," said Julian. "I can't imagine anyone going away and leaving the radio full on, and it must be if we can hear it out here. Perhaps we ought to look round a bit. The noise seems to come from over there, the other side of the house, not where the yard is. Let's go round there." There was a sudden hiss from a nearby bush, and Timmy pricked up his ears. "That cat again!" "Hang on to Tim, there's the cat," said Julian, as a black streak fled across the beam of his torch. "Come on now, let's go round the other side of the house." As soon as they turned the corner, they came to a terrace, with steps leading down to a garden only faintly to be seen in the starlight. The band music was suddenly louder there. There was now no doubt at all that it was radio music. "Well, it's certainly coming from the house," said Julian. "But from which room? As far as I can see, the whole place is in darkness." Chapter 7. So it was. Not a chink of light showed anywhere. Julian shone his torch onto each window. They were all tightly shut, as if the house were indeed empty and deserted. "There's a tree that reaches up to that balcony," said Dick. "I'll shin up and get onto it and see if I can spot anything in the house. If the curtains aren't drawn there, I can shine my torch in." Up the tree he went, the others shining their torches to show him which branches to climb. At last he was on the balcony, his own torch now shining brightly. There were glass doors there, and the curtains of the room behind weren't drawn across the panes. Dick shone his torch through the glass. "The radio's in this room, I'm sure," he cried. "I can hear it clearly. It's on full, too. The noise is coming through a ventilator above the glass doors." "Oh! What is it?" cried everyone, hearing a sudden strange note in Dick's excited voice. "There's someone in this room," called back Dick. "Someone lying on the floor. But I can't see clearly enough. Whoever it is isn't moving at all. I'll tap and see if they hear me." The others heard the sound of tapping, and then Dick's voice again. "Yes, the person moved when I tapped. Who on earth can it be? He must be hurt, I think. But the doors are locked, so I can't get in. I'm coming down again, so shine your torches, will you?" Dick climbed quickly down the tree, and the others crowded round him excitedly. "We'll have to get into the house somehow," said Dick. "I'm sure it's someone who's hurt, or maybe ill." "But how did they get in?" said Julian in wonder. "And how can we get in, for that matter?" "We'll try all the doors to begin with," said Dick. "Here's a garden door." "No, that's locked." "Come on round to the kitchen door. I suppose that'll be locked too." But it wasn't. It opened easily enough, and the five trooped into the house, Timmy quite excited. The noise of the radio suddenly seemed much louder as they went in. "Come on upstairs," said Dick. "We'll find the balcony room." It was all in darkness, which made it seem stranger than ever. They ran up the wide stairs. The sound of the radio was very loud there. They listened intently. "It's in that room over there," shouted Dick, and ran to a half-open door. He shone his torch round, and then let the beam rest on something lying on the floor. What could it be? Julian reached out his hand to the light switch by the door. Click! The light flooded the room, and everyone blinked. The radio went on and on all the time, the dance band playing away gaily. Chapter 8. On the floor near the radio lay a woman. She looked old and had silvery grey hair. She was dressed in outdoor things, and her hat lay on the floor. The children looked at her in horror. What could have happened? At last, to their relief, they saw her eyes open, and she looked up at them. Then she tried to speak. "Water," she croaked. George darted out and found a bathroom with glasses. She filled one with water and brought it back. Julian eased the old woman up into a sitting position, and George helped her to drink the water. She managed to give them a faint smile. "So silly of me," she said, in a faraway kind of voice. "I was just going downstairs to leave the house by the back door, when I slipped here on the polished floor, and... She stopped for a moment, and Anne patted her hand. "You fell and hurt yourself?" she said. "Where?" "I'm afraid it's my hip," said the old lady. "I couldn't get up off the floor. I just couldn't. So I wasn't even able to phone for help. And there was no one in the house. My niece had gone." "And your Daly woman is deaf, so she couldn't hear you call," said Julian, remembering. Yes, said the old lady. "I just managed to get my arm up to the radio and switched it on. You see, I thought someone might hear it. Perhaps a policeman coming round the house at night." "How long have you been here?" "Since yesterday afternoon," said the old lady. "I just couldn't move, you see. I was glad I had my outdoor things on. I'd have frozen stiff last night. It was so cold. I was so thirsty too. Not hungry, just very, very thirsty. You dear, kind children. Oh, I am so glad to see you." Julian switched off the radio. "Where's the phone?" he said. "I'll call for a doctor and an ambulance, and you'll soon be well cared for. Don't you worry." The five stayed with her until the doctor came, and later on the ambulance. Then Julian turned out all the lights that had been switched on, and they went into the hall. Julian slammed the front door after them. Come on, Timmy, keep by my side, ordered George. No more cat chasing for you. What's he saying, George? asked Anne. George chuckled. He says, don't talk to me like that, George. If it hadn't been for me chasing that cat today, you'd never have had this little adventure. Well, Timmy's right as usual, said Dick. And if chasing a cat leads to saving somebody's life, I'm all for it. Good old Tim.